It's been about 4 days by the time of the writing of this script that I have had read the final chapter of Attack on Titan. Now that I have had some time to process my thoughts and actually have a full thought out opinion on it with actual reasons, I thought I should make a video on it. So first, before getting into it, let me get some stuff out of the way straight away. Was the ending bad? Hell no! Was it entirely perfect? No, but it actually makes sense considering the story and what it has been leading up to? Yes. I know guys will probably think I have gone mad or something cause most of the reviews about the final chapter are it being pretty bad. Like on Mal there has been a heavy drop in ratings, but I'm gonna explain everything in this discussion about why it all makes sense. It has been foreshadowed since a long time ago, actually is along what Attack on Titan has been all along. And the ending is pretty good. And people are eventually gonna talk about it in some years saying, imagine hating on the perfect ending of the Attack on Titan manga. I'm just gonna say it right now that I did it first, bitches. So let's start the video. The chapter starts with a conversation between Kid Armin and Kid Eren talking. We get Eren's point of view on why he was doing all of this, and yes, Eren was trying to portray the villain to make his friends the hero. Cause why wouldn't they be the most respected humans around the world when they, even though are residents of Paradise, betrayed their own island to keep their humanity and save the world? Here they highlight one of the main points of the series, to remain human in a cruel world. Yes, Armin has said multiple times that they have to throw away their humanity to actually succeed. But he never actually did that, did he? He was always the one who always remained the most human and hopeful in this inhumane world. Eren also confirms what everyone suspected from way back. Eren did push all his friends away. He didn't have this master plan all along and was just going with the flow. Armin then asks him if they now have to protect themselves and Paradise from the retaliation of the entire world, like the Tiber family did initially after the Great Titan War. To which Eren replies, much to Armin's shock, that 80% of humanity is dead. This shows that his rumbling was no measly thing. Most of humanity and the world has been destroyed. Also, this 80% has been specified a lot of times. This 80% is contrary to the 20% of humanity that was killed 9 years ago when Reiner, Berthold and Annie invaded the walls. Thing which actually started this all. Armin asks Eren this question whether all of this was really necessary for Eren to do. Did he really have to destroy 80% of humanity for their sake? Eren looks at him and just ignores this question as he starts telling him the story of the founder, as he takes Armin to look at all the things they always wanted to see. Eren tells him that the power of the Titans only exists because of the king who burned her hometown, killed her parents, turned her into his concubine, and pulled out her tongue. She continued to obey him. Even when she became literal god, she still continued to obey him. I personally initially thought of this as the same way others did. It's because of little Ymir's slave mentality which she could not get out of. But to the possibly biggest twist in this last chapter, it was because of love. For 2000 years, she continued to make titans because she could not get freedom from her love, from her admiration to this king of old, and to continue his wishes, which was the multiplication of the Eldians and their survival with the power of the titans. But through the years of her captivity, she realized the toxicity of her love. As she watched history and the cycle of death repeating itself, she realized that maybe she should let this go and be finally free. She wanted someone to free her from this pain of love. For 2000 years, she searched for someone who would release her from this captivity. And she finally found that someone. It was Mikasa. Eren tells Armin that even he doesn't know what or why Mikasa will do, which will in turn free Ymir and save the world. He only moved forward because he knew what the result would be. In the previous chapter, by finally killing Eren, Mikasa showed Ymir that you can love someone and not be a slave to that love. She showed her that you can love someone and not agree with their ideas. She showed her that you can love someone but still have to kill them to protect and save everyone else. She showed this to her by killing Eren, the person she loved. Throughout the series, her main focus was always the safety of Eren, and she had to be the one to kill him and show Ymir what love truly is. This is what frees Ymir from her 2000-year captivity. From her pain of love, she finally lets go and she's finally free. Okay, enough summarization for now. You guys are not here for a summary. Let's start talking about the good, the bad and the stuff people don't understand. So, first let's talk about the biggest problem people have with this chapter. It is Eren's character. People think this chapter butchered Eren's character and undermined the significance of his freedom. While it's quite the contrary. This chapter actually showed us what Eren is really like, showed us a more human side of him. People think of Eren as this embodiment of freedom, someone who represents the very concept of it, same with the Attack Titan. What they don't understand is, Eren was never free. None of the Attack Titan shifters were. Eren was an ironic portrayal on freedom, because to someone who already knows the future and what's going to happen, there is no freedom, because he is bounded by fate. He knows what's about to happen and he needs to act in that way. Eren is a prisoner of time and fate, as his path has already been decided long ago. It's not that Eren became captive in this chapter, he always was. It's a fact that Attack on Titan plays with the very idea of what freedom is, with all the different characters coming to their own different conclusions as to what the word means throughout their journey. But we never actually got Eren's feeling for freedom. He just says that he wants to be free, even though Armin asks him multiple times what this freedom is he's speaking of or who is actually the slave. He ignores those questions and rather acts very irritated on hearing them, cause Eren always knew that he was never free. From that day a few years ago when he inherited the Attack Titan, he has never been free, and he has been walking on this decided path which will lead to the freedom of his people and not of his own. But he still never stopped wanting to be free. He always wanted to go outside the walls and experience the world as a free person because he was born into this world. The want for freedom was ingrained in him since he was a kid. Literally the first words he heard were, "You are free." But his entire ideology was shaken on that day when he found out about the secret of the walls and the day he learned of the future. Now let's talk about why this scene is not actually out of character. First, it's not the first time we have seen Eren broke down. It has happened numerous times, like the Historia cave scene or the scene with Ramsey in chapter 131, Carla's death when he was inside the bearded titan, Levi's squad death, Hannes' death, Sasha's death during his talk with Armin and Mikasa at the restaurant, or when he cried while talking to Ramsey. This was not out of character. Eren has always been an emotional character. He has always shown to have bursts of emotion in certain situations like the ones I mentioned. In chapter 139, upon realizing that he has killed numerous innocent people, which includes some of his friends, and that he is about to die and he will never be able to see his friends ever again, people he loves dearly, he had his final breakdown, which was triggered by Armin mentioning Mikasa and that she would find another decent guy hopeful. It's no secret that Eren has always loved her. This causes him to have an emotional breakdown. This shows that Eren is not some calculating mastermind and that in heart he is still indeed a 19-year-old boy who still wants the person he loves to love him and only him. But he still says to Armin that he is embarrassed by his thinking and that he indeed does want Mikasa to be happy. The straightforward manner of his talking is what made this scene so jarring to Armin and us readers. And since he no longer needs to maintain his cold facade now that the end is near, it allows us to see a more vulnerable and distressed part of him. He's about to die, but he doesn't want to and just wishes that he could keep on living with his friends. Yet he knows that it's not possible and that he has to let go. Finally, no, Eren didn't kill his mother. In the official translation, it's implied that it was Ymir who killed his mother, and even though he tried everything he couldn't just save his mom from getting eaten by the smiling titan, because without it, everything else wouldn't have happened. His mother's death was what started everything for him and was his main motivation for everything throughout the series. It was like him eating Grisha, a necessary sacrifice that he had to let happen, which led to the removal of the Titans from this world eventually. This entire conversation actually made sense and was within the main theme of the story, except for this line, "Thank you, you became a mass murderer for our sake, Eren." Armin goes all ham on Eren for saying he doesn't know what's about to happen but doesn't do anything here and instead thanks him. What? I know he called this an error, but Armin would never thank him for that. Armin himself had to kill his own friends in the corpse just to go and stop the rumbling. Him forgiving Eren makes sense, just like everyone else was crying and forgave him, because they all have done things in their lives which were wrong, but they still had to do it, because just like we know, no one is in the wrong here. Now, one thing which I genuinely feel is a failure from Attack on Titan is Historia's character. Especially after the time skip, she just became irrelevant to the story. Her entire baby side plot should have been explained a bit more, in my opinion, because there wasn't really a major twist in this. Historia is one of my favorite characters and I expected more from her. Volume 34 will have some more pages than the chapter 139. Let's talk about what I want from those pages to actually make people like this chapter a whole lot more. First, more context in the Eren and Armin conversation and twist the dialogue a bit more so that it makes sense without people having to search for the underlying meaning of it. Ymir's love for King Fritz to be explained better. This really came out of nowhere, and it ended in one panel. Her being in love with King Fritz takes away all the sympathy readers felt towards her. She was his concubine, not his wife. She was his slave. I want Isayama to explain this in much more detail so that we can get more idea as to why she fell in love with him and what made her a 2000-year-old slave to him. I don't like the entire concept, to be honest. I would have preferred the reasoning to be her slave mentality or her loving her people. Every Eldian was born, but Isayama can't change that now since he has made Mikasa the one to break her out. So he cannot change the main concept, but at least he can shed some more backlight for it to make sense. I love the concept of Mikasa breaking her free from the pain of love, cause it makes so much goddamn sense, but I just wish if he explained her being in love with King Fritz a bit more. I also want him to show us the conversation Eren had with his friends. especially with Reiner. Rereading chapter 99 to 100 after finishing Attack on Titan brings the conversation between Eren and Reiner into another light. Eren isn't just questioning Reiner, he's questioning himself. I am the same as you, as Eren said. He keeps asking precise questions about Reiner's reason for attacking Paradise, and his answer reflects Eren's plan to save the world. By killing a certain group of people, Eren will save his world, Paradise, and to be more exact, his friends, by killing everyone else. And just like Reiner, he didn't have a choice, something which is repeated twice during that conversation to emphasize how they could only move forward. Eren compares himself to Reiner again in chapter 131, when he saves Ramsey from the merchants as he hypocritically saved someone that he will kill later. And no, Eren didn't know he had to make sure his mother would stay dead by the time of this conversation. He only knew about that after chapter 122 when he actually unlocked the powers of the Founding Titan. I also want a few more panels explaining some of the unanswered questions like what is the reason of Mikasa's headache, how did Eren erase Mikasa's memories even though the Founding Titan's memory erasing powers don't work on the Ackermans, how did Mikasa reach Paradise even though there was no means for her to do so. I also want to see the centipede thing vanishing or becoming steam or however it died to be shown on screen. It just vanished off screen. Also, I want to answer one of the questions people had, which I actually think has already been answered. That is, where is Ymir? Since Mikasa finally freed Ymir at the end of chapter 138 by killing Eren, she's finally free. Since she doesn't have to build titans anymore, so the world of the coordinate and the source of the powers, the parasites, the hallucigenia is also no more. The part about the paths no longer being a thing is further cemented by the fact that the survey course and everyone else was shown to be vanishing away, indicating that they can finally rest, since before that the subjects of Ymir never really used to die. As to what happened to Ymir Fritz herself, she's finally free. Just as it has always been, freedom is a subjective topic. It depends on you to determine what freedom is to you. That has always been one of the core philosophies of Attack on Titan, the concept of freedom. Whether to you freedom means her dying, or it means she is reborn as a Historia's child, it was neither confirmed nor denied whether the child is Ymir or not. This entirely depends upon your own perspective and interpretation. Now, finally, let's talk about the ending. Everything which happened after the Titan powers were no more. What I like the most about this ending is the fact that it didn't end up like a total peaceful ending or a future completely bright, because that would be totally unrealistic. Rather, even after a 3-year time skip, the world isn't exactly any better. Paradise and the rest of the world are not exactly all that friendly, but with Queen Historia at power, they are open to peace negotiations. Yes, I know Annie was saying whether she will accept their offer, but if she wasn't open to peace negotiations, the Alliance nations wouldn't be able to send them to offer this in the first place. Yes, Paradise is still preparing for war, but that's mostly preparations for self-defense as to when and if the rest of the nations attack on them. Now let's talk about how even after all this talk about putting their differences behind and that at the end of the day they are still human, all of them, the Marleyan soldiers, still pointed guns to the face of all the Eldians who were Titans just a minute ago, showing that it's not that simple. This proves that even if the power of the Titans don't exist, or even if Eren succeeded with the rumbling, conflict between humans will still continue unless there is one or less remaining. So in spite of him knowing that the Eldians actually have no way to prove it, Mueller still asks them to prove if they're Titans or just humans. Armin comes forward saying that the fact that they are standing in front of them in spite of having guns pointed at them is proof enough that they are mere humans now. Armin, the hero of humanity, the last commander of the Survey Corps, a human from Paradise, later introduces him as the one who killed Eren Yeager and who stopped the rumbling, and the one who saved the rest of the world. Now, the story actually in that letter describes how the rest of the world has suffered a physical and mental scar for the rest of their lives. Even if they are not physically injured, that mental trauma is not going to heal probably ever. However, like I said before, Eldians fear retaliation and still are living on Eren Yeager's words. If we win, we live. If we lose, we die. If you don't fight, we can't win. Fight, fight. In these two panels where we see a lot of the side characters, there is our lovely Hitch, still as sleepy as ever. Rico is back after such a long time, that's good. Nicolo seems to have been taken in by the Browse family with Kaya and the rest of the family right beside him. The conversation between these guys are really cute and funny. It feels good that they are all back to being friends. I'm happy that Reiner is not depressed all the time anymore, and also, yes, Pieck is best girl. At least in year 857 she is. It's not even close, just look at her. Yes, of course this new world, it's not heaven, but it's certainly a lot more peaceful than before. With all of them open to peace suggestions, yes, even though both are preparing their armies, still the other recovers that isn't necessarily for war. It is rather to protect themselves. Paradise really seems at its best with Historia at top. Armin explains that conflict will never end, but when they see these two groups of people who were at their throats for so many years, together, coming to their island to vouch for peace, People would want to know their story, which made them think and feel that way. Even this group of people are the ones who destroyed the walls and betrayed the island and killed Eren. Everyone in this world, still in any day, would prefer peace over war. So Armin wants to tell them their story. This again signifies the power in stories and simple talks people have. This has been at the base throughout the story. People have fought for so long and that has never actually taken them anywhere. The only thing that has actually been productive is when two people simply talk to resolve their differences, again signifying how talking is the one thing that actually brought Paradis and Marley together here, and how this is what actually convinced Zeke in the first place. Before talking about the final two panels, I want to mention one of the best scenes from the entire story, and that is Levi's final goodbye. Levi tells them how this is the result all of them devoted their hearts towards. The Survey Corps are no longer needed now that the Titans are no more. This is Levi's graduation and final goodbye to all the Survey Corps members as they have finished their purpose, and they all dedicate their hearts for one last time. In post-time script, Levi is on a wheelchair with Gabby and Falco, indicating how a conflict of the past doesn't need to determine the closeness of the future. Also, like I previously said, I want to see Eren's conversations with all his friends, especially with Raina. I want to see how Raina would react now that Eren actually reunited Raina with his mother, and how Eren tells him about everything he has done and that he had to do since he had no other choice. I want to see Eren telling Raina how truly similar they are and the reason why he understands him the best and why Eren has actually forgiven him now, and they make up or at least something related to that. Lastly, the final scene is Mikasa in front of Eren's grave, in front of the tree on the top of the hill where it all started. The tree where Eren used to doze off. There are some campanula flowers in front of this grave, these purple flowers which are present in every Mikasa and Eren scene. These flowers actually represent gratitude, humility, attractiveness, and everlasting love. It also represents disappointment and foreshadowing of events. Upon revisiting chapter 1 now, we can see that there was a cross on that tree even in that first chapter where Eren's head was buried now. Just a little Easter egg, to show that Isayama did actually consider this ending from the very beginning. Mikasa is telling to his grave that she misses him and wants to see him again. Just then, a bird comes up to her and wraps her scarf around her. And she says, "Thank you, Eren, for wrapping this scarf around me." And Attack on Titan story ends just the way it began, with Mikasa and her scarf beneath the tree on that hill. This ending is open to interpretation whether the bird reminded her of him or is that an reincarnated Eren. I for one am not sure, cause there was a memory shot from the point of view of a bird from chapter 90 with Falco. Speaking of birds, they have always been symbols of freedom in Attack on Titan, especially after the time skip. Isayama made numerous detailed depictions of birds flying in the sky, which in my opinion were representations of Eren's will to be free, but also a way for Eren to see the past and the future while he had the power of the founding Titan. Every time Isayama drew a bird was at a key moment of the story. The first chapter post-time skip, hence the memory shot, his beheading during the rumbling, the first chapter when he communicated with Armin on the boat, and finally when a bird put the scarf back on Mikasa. Even if he was reincarnated as one, like I said, it would be truly a fitting ending to his story, cause after everything he has done and he has been through, maybe, just maybe, after his death, Eren is finally free. So Isayama in 2015 said that the original ending of Attack on Titan has been changed by him since it would be too depressing for the audience, as the original ending had everyone except Eren dying. I think this is the ending which we see in the promotional video for Akatsuki no Requiem, or the Akatsuki no Requiem theory to be honest. I'll provide necessary resources in the description, so check that out. But briefly, it's about a world after the rumbling. It's basically young Eren seeing his future self's memories. In this world, the rumbling succeeded and all of Eren's friends are dead. Paradis is pretty advanced now and Eren has a wife and son, most probably Historia, but he has this guilt for killing so many innocent people, but he can't do anything since this was the only way, and he has to spend the rest of his life in crippling guilt of killing everyone else, which also includes his friends. I really like this theory to be honest, but there is one major problem: the message which it portrays. Most series are written to portray a message, with Attack on Titan having multiple messages such as the meaning of life, how freedom is subjective, how good and evil are not so white and black concepts, and so on and so forth. And for the story to be ingrained in such complex real-life topics of slavery and racism, one of those quote-unquote slaves or someone who was racially abused going on to destroy the rest of the world, which actually works. Yes, he has crippling guilt, but his people are free and the world is perfect. It's not that good of a message, is it? Yes, I know genocide is bad is an obvious topic, but that wasn't the point of this ending. This ending was supposed to represent how there wasn't a way to remove conflict from this world. Life is not sunshine and dandy all the time. Just if you remove one sort of people, internal problems will forever go on, and that peace will always be a work in progress. In the end, I think what hurts chapter 139 the most are not the ideas and the themes that are addressed, but the execution. Many plot points should have been explained in the conclusion, such as Ymir's love for King Fritz. This is something, along with the unanswered questions I mentioned previously, will be answered in the remaining pages, I hope. Some things are unsalvageable in their current form, like Armin's thank you or the waste of Historia's character. I personally really like the ending, and I think people will accept the ending a lot more if some dialogues are twisted and some things are given more context, along with if the unanswered questions are answered, obviously. But in the end, I don't think chapter 139 betrays Attack on Titan's story. The chapter is rushed because Isayama really wanted to end this thing on chapter 139 to address that freedom of all will never be achieved no matter how hard you try, and that again, it is the start of a new era and the ending of one. At least that's what it means in numerology. The main ending is of course a spin on the Zero Requiem, but at the same time, it's a twisted version of it because the world is not like heaven now. The ending is not executed that well, but the themes addressed remain in line with what we had seen before, and that is what matters the most to me. I would love to know all your thoughts on it, by the way. Also, now I don't think I'll be making Attack on Titan videos anytime soon, not until the anime comes back, like next year. And I'm thinking about other stuff, especially some seasonal stuff that airing this season, so look out for that. Subscriptions, likes, shares are really appreciated. Thank you for watching, and before leaving, I'd like to thank Hajime Isayama for his almost 12 years of hard work. You really gave us one gem of a series, sir, and damn, it has been a fantastic ride. And now finally, you are free. Peace.